So thank you for coming. In today's panel, what we wanted to do was talk a little bit about women in CX leadership. And I've got an amazing panel here with me today. So just a quick introduction of myself. My name is Mary Drummond. I am CMO at Worthix. And I'm also the host of a podcast called Voices of Customer Experience. We've got a couple guests from the podcast here today. I recommend that you all stick around for Professor Ryan Hamilton at some point today because he's amazing. Don't miss it. And I wanted to give these wonderful ladies a chance to introduce themselves as well and talk a little bit about what they do. So we'll start with Tracy.
So thank you for having me as part of the panel. I'm Tracy Robertson, and I lead I'm the Vice President of Global Customer Experience for Kimberly-Clark, and I'm based out of here in Roswell.
Hey, Diane Majors, good to see you again. Interim CEO for the Customer Experience Professionals Association. So I get the distinct pleasure of being able to see lots of different practices and lots of practitioners across our space.
And I'm Tucker Sarkisian, Sweetwater Brewing Company based here in Atlanta. So I make beer all day. Just kidding. But I do market and promote it.
That's great. Well, I wanted to start off with a question for you, Tucker.
Okay.
Because the truth is that you're not a CX practitioner like most of the people here, but this hasn't stopped you from leading very customer-centric experiences at Sweetwater. So how did this start? Where did this mindset come from? Is this something that you consider happened naturally, or was it something that was researched and put into play by the leadership? How did that work out?
Yeah, good question. For me personally, I think that the understanding that we need to deliver excellent customer experiences in order to best market and promote our clients started at Serenby. It's a real estate development about 32 miles southwest of the city, and I was director of communications there. This was when green building wasn't necessarily something that just rolled off the tongue. People thought that we were building hay bale houses out there in the woods. So the traditional real estate marketing and PR did not work for that client. It was never going to work. So instead, I started making up reasons for people to come visit Serenby. That was everything from partnering with Les Dames d'Escoffier and doing a big chef event, and we sold 500 tickets to it and sold a house from it. Doing a big May Day festival, doing farmers markets, giving people reasons to come down and experience the life at Serenby ultimately led to sales. And it's the same with Sweetwater. If we deliver an excellent liquid in a can, people will drink it. But there's so much choice out there now in the craft industry that it has to be more than just that great liquid in the can to keep customers coming back and back. And I think one thing that we've done well at Sweetwater is establishing it as a lifestyle brand in addition to a beer company. And that starts at the brewery, the mothership, the hub of everything. And so we have to deliver these incredible experiences for customers when they're at the brewery so that then they become vocal advocates and keep on drinking our 420.
Absolutely. Well, Diane, I know that this is something that you deal with every day, which is customer experience, and the fact that you were around when this all kind of started, and it's very new.
Yeah, I'm old.
It's very new. So how for you and your perspective, how does it feel to see that customer experience is becoming something that is occurring naturally nowadays in more recent companies?
It's amazing to watch that because I was sharing a story with you about, I worked at Cisco Foods for a long time, and talk about a left brain, the executive team was very homogenous, as you can imagine, left brain, and I'm in there talking about emotion. Right, and how emotion drives behavior, drives business results kind of thing. And they're looking at me like, what? And so I literally had to go and develop skill sets to tell that story. And so it was this whole kind of push the rock up the hill. And it's so wonderful to hear that the way that we lead today is with that emotion and connecting it to our lives in general. Like, how would we want to be treated? Kind of the golden rule, right? How would we want to be treated? How does that bring people onto our brand? How does it keep them with our brand? So I love this whole thing about thinking about way back when, kind of pushing that, what is emotion, why should I care, to that is how people are engaging. As a matter of fact, if you look at marketing today, any commercial you pay attention to, pay closer attention to it. What you'll see is it's this emotional connection, and then you see the brand, versus the way it used to be the other way around.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to watch that happen organically.
It's an interesting point.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, well, Tracy, I know that you're new in the role that you occupy right now, and it's a global role. So there's a lot of visibility there. And do you feel like there are any special skills that you naturally possess as a woman? I mean, this is a panel about women in customer experience. Do you feel that this gives you a natural advantage, perhaps, in your role as leadership, or do you find that it's the opposite, that it's actually been more difficult and there have been more obstacles to overcome?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I gave that topic a lot of thought this weekend. And whatever I say is based on my own personal experience, so I'll try not to stereotype. I think, yes, for me, having, I'm a natural communicator, I'm a natural storyteller. I think those things are critical in CX, very scrappy and agile. And I think for me, those skills I've seen have just been a little bit more natural for women that I've worked with, just based on my experience. I would also say, but what's interesting is if you think about this, like a lot of CX, you've got digital, you've got data, you've got pretty heavy technology. This typically hasn't been a place that women have worked. So it's very interesting to see kind of, and I've had to go through that, my own personal journey to get up to speed on that. Those weren't options for me when I was younger. So yes, I do think there's some natural skills there. I don't know if you guys have any build on that, perspective on that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I work with all dudes, shocker. But I don't think that they see me as a woman or not a woman. I think they see me as director of communications. And I think that I can thank my dad for that. He, from a very early age, drilled into my head, act like you've been here before. And whether that was on the soccer field, going to, an adult cocktail party or something, he just always said, act like you've been here before. And I think that's from some football coach that told their team that when they got in the end zone, whatever.
Sports analogy.
Right, exactly. And I've brought that to every job that I've ever held. I've had that mindset of act like you've been here before, and I will come as prepared as humanly possible so that I can perform the best that I possibly can and not give anyone the opportunity to see me as a woman or not a woman. And I would love to think that that's just some really cool feminine trait that we all possess.
Well, to your point about having to learn all those different things too, I don't know anybody, so I will admit we multitask probably too much as women.
Maybe.
Yeah. So everybody says it's like, don't try to do so much. Everybody tells me, don't try to do too much. But I think that natural ability to look at all of those things because of the complexity of the job and say, yes, I can learn about IT, and yes, I can do this and be in this meeting and talk about emotion here and the business case right afterwards.
That's a great point.
Is that flexibility and ability to jump between those things is, I think, unique to our skill set. Not that somebody can't develop it, but that's where I kind of gravitate toward. So.
I think that's a great point because there's just the space is so wide. You have to be in so many different lanes, right? So I think that's a really good point.
How about empathy? I mean, empathy is something that's crucial, and it does come very naturally to women as well as maybe nurturing. There's that motherly instinct. So when it comes to dealing directly with customers, there is a nurture aspect in there as well, isn't there? So you need to take care of them.
And employees. And employees.
So is customer experience the new HR department where it's always the woman in there?
We were just talking about that over lunch.
I don't wonder if it's not just part of bringing people along through change. I think women have a unique capability to discover and understand where people are. And the fact that if they're facing something difficult, that we rally around that in a very nurturing way. And so that helps people transition to, it's okay to have these new behaviors and new thought processes, and it'll be fine as you walk along, kind of that, it's okay, it'll be all right. That kind of nurturing point, which really helps people to have the support that they need and the leadership, as you talked about. Be there before, have the confidence just to say, this is where we're headed. It might be wrong, but this is where we're headed. And I think it's okay to do that.
Yeah. Well, this panel's very interesting because, Tracy, you work at a global company that's just massive. And on the other side, we have Tucker. You're working with a local kind of youngish brewery, et cetera. Well, Diane, you're at the helm of this customer experience movement with the CXPA. So there's a lot of variety here, but one way or another, it's still women in positions of leadership. Now, we don't want to somehow say, for all you men out there, you are useless in customer experience, go home now. But what do you think the men who are here can maybe learn from this panel and take home with them as an experience of the future and what the future is going to look like? I'll start with you, Dan.
Oh, I'm gonna pass that one over. I hadn't thought about that one.
Tracy.
So I would say one of the best skills, and if you are not natural at this, there are just tons of great training out there, but storytelling is a top skill that you just have to be good at it. And at my last company, we hosted several trainings around the world with men specifically on storytelling, because it isn't something that is natural. And I think going forward, not only communicating with your employees, and it's strategic storytelling too, I would say, sharing those stories with your customers, how you present, how you relate, everything. It's just not tend to be, and I don't want to stereotype, this is based on my experience, it doesn't tend to be a natural kind of skill set for men. So I would say, and they do deem this as one of the top 5 critical skill sets for the future. And so if you can invest some time in really understanding or go to training or whatever, or bring someone into your organization that can train a bunch of you, men and women alike, that is a critical, critical skill. Yep.
Tucker, do you feel like the position that you're in now, where you think that the people that are working with you don't see you as some sort of gender-specific whatever, and it's more like, no, the director of communications. What do you think made that possible? You think that's just a cultural shift? You think it's everything that's been going on for the past maybe 50 years that has come to this stage where it's normal to have a woman in a position of power? Would you say that that's part of leadership, and that it's crucial for leadership to bring that culture on board?
Oh, for sure it is. I mean, I work in, even though it is so dude-dominated.
So dude-dominated.
It's still
so much facial hair.
It's still progressive. It's
right.
still, progressive men who work there. And I think that I can't discount that. But I also don't want to discount the personal presentation and preparation for it all. I think if I walked in there with anything less than the same confidence that I am on the same playing field as these folks, I think that, bees and dogs smell fear. Isn't that the thing?
Sure.
So I don't want to discount their progressive nature, but I also don't want to discount personal preparation and presentation either. Does that answer it fully?
I'll add to that. So in my last company, I spent 10 years, and it was 95% male. And I will tell you, what I learned being in that environment, and many times the only woman around the table, was I learned the skills of how to communicate like a man, which is
nailed it. Absolutely.
Which were good skills, right? Instead of blah 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 blah. It was like, get to the point, be action, And so that was a very good learning experience for me. And I will tell you, but today I think we're just seeing more women at the leadership table at the company I work for now. It's half of the leaders at the table are women, and it's really inspiring, because diversity is what brings a better leadership team and brings the organization along. I'm just a true believer of that.
That is, you totally nailed it. That is something too. Acting like you've been here before and communicating with folks how they are communicating with each other.
Right.
Shocker, there are swear words used at Sweetwater Brewing Company every day in a professional situation. And so I might throw a swear word in here or there. But I think communicating with people on their same level and how they like to be communicated with is key. Totally.
So it's a bit of emotional intelligence as well, of knowing your public, right? Of being able to maybe adapt to circumstance as well. So what I'm hearing is that a large portion of the success of women in the work, even in customer experience today, is knowing how to communicate without being maybe so caught up in male, female, and just looking at it as work. I don't know.
I think to your point about how to learn, you talk about how the numbers have shifted, but I think it's also the ability for people to understand and grow with that diversity. That I don't have to worry about the fact that if I don't communicate exactly the way that this person wants, I can be myself and accept and learn from the reflection, or learn from that mirror of what people are sharing with me about how I need to change, which I'll share that story later. Or I'm learning skill sets from them. So I feel that it's less about who has the right skill set as much as it is, what can I learn from you? Because this role, as I said this morning, is so complex. There's so many things you have to learn that you've got to take, not just the tactical, like what is digital experience and how do you do that, to I need to learn more about how to influence and how to build skills and how to have that conversation about the business value in a way that makes sense to the CFO and everybody else at the table. So
and
I think it's
where
this exchange.
Storytelling is so important.
It's exactly right. It's that exchange of information and skill sets that I think we're finally taking advantage of. And I think that wasn't really acceptable for a while. It's kind of, this is the way it is. But as our world shifts, we've all got to shift with it. And I think the communication at the board table or anywhere else is changing between the...
Very nicely said.
I wanted to open up for the panelists, ask questions back and forth. Who wants to start? Tracy, I know you.
Well, first off, I love Sweetwater beer.
Thanks. We all do.
So, yeah, I would love to know, like, how did you start your journey?
With Sweetwater?
Nope, in CX.
Let me tell you how I got to Sweetwater. I think this is actually kind of a good story and goes back to the experiences. I'm at Serenby again, trying to sell this place with buckhead prices, but in the middle of the woods. And people think I'm building hay bale houses because I called it green. I reached out for my very first event, I reached out to Sweetwater Brewery and said, would you drive one of your crazy tie-dyed vans down to the middle of the woods and give people beer for free? I feel like I can get people to come if I at least offer them free beer. And they said, sure. And then I was a marketing communications team of one. At that time, Sweetwater had a marketing communications team of one. And so we continued to use each other as each other's sounding boards. And we continued to partner up on events and experiences for people that thusly enhanced both Sweetwater and Serenby, and then fast forward 15 years later, and they brought me in-house.
That's pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Do you have a question, Tucker, that you want to?
Okay, so since you are a fan of Sweetwater, from the outside looking in, would love to hear any perspective or thoughts that you guys have on what kind of experience we deliver and maybe how we could improve upon that.
I can answer that.
Okay.
Okay. Well, honestly, at Sweetwater 420, I think pot. And I think if I'm not a pot,
Weird.
can I enjoy this beverage?
No one thinks that. Okay.
Fair?
It's April
Fair
20th,
enough.
you guys. April 20th. That's the day we first brewed the beer.
Oh, it's good.
Spin it up.
How did you get started?
In CX?
You can answer, yeah.
So I was at, sometimes I believe careers are just in the right place at the right time. And at my last organization, we were putting together a mission-based team of a variety of different skill sets to engage, transform the customer experience, the seller experience, and digitally transform the business. And I had some of those skills, but not all of them. And I really had to teach myself, but I love change. So, I love change. Like, if you walked in tomorrow and said, okay, we're starting over or take this direction, and I think we all have to embrace change, right? It's just the new normal. And so I got started in this team, and I just fell in love with the work. It was intriguing. I'm a very curious person. I love to learn. And it was hard. And I had been a traditionally, classically trained marketer and commercial person. And I just saw this as an opportunity to try something new. So I took a risk because, I was basically kind of in a chief marketing officer role and had done that most of my life. And I was just ready for a change. And so I took the risk and started down this journey. And thank goodness I was surrounded by people that were much smarter than me. And then I just fell in love with it. And I didn't, this job, I was saying, 5 years ago, this job didn't exist, right? And I always say, and my next job doesn't exist yet.
Right.
And so it's just exciting because it's changing fast. And I think if you have a personality where you love change and you love fast and you're agile, and this is just a great space to be in. Yeah. And again, so many different
everything is
swimming
fast
lanes.
nowadays, no?
Oh,
It's hard
so
to keep
fast.
up, no?
It is hard to keep up. People always ask me, how do I keep up with skills? Or if I'm a classically trained this, how do I
Right. become
become that or you? And I'm like, there is no one that's going to hand you a professional development plan for this, right? It's like, I think CX and digital and all of this will be kind of like the internet in the future. It's just, we'll all be doing it.
Right.
It was like when mobile phones came out and they set up the mobile phone department in this. That's gone, right?
We're in a stage of transitioning.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
So
wonderful.
that's how I got in. I was just at the right place at the right time, and I was willing for a change, and now I'm like, I can't envision doing anything else.
Well, that's a perfect place we're reaching the end of our panel. But one thing that I wanted to leave the audience with as well is kind of a food for thought. Where do you want to see customer experience going? What do you envision as the future? And where do you feel like, as women in positions of power in customer experience, how can we help take the industry there?
That's a big load.
Yeah.
Go out with a bang, right?
I think it's take risks and listen to your heart. And I'll share a story from an experience I had with a male leader. So I had a very charismatic leader when I started in CX, how I got into it. I was a clinical psychologist. I took a break. I went to work for an ad agency and I went to work for a CEO who just believed a long time ago, 94, somewhere, and he just believed that if we did think right by the customer, we were going to be successful. And so that kind of started down there. So it was that whole build it up, and so that's where I learned a lot of it. But then I was with another organization where I kept hearing in my job reviews that you don't stay in your lane, the scope of your projects goes outside, you need to spend time focusing rather than thinking about this big picture. And I took it as this feedback of, oh, I'm not really doing the right thing. And it wasn't too long after that, having some discussions with some of my friends and mentors, that they said, you know what, you're just in the wrong place. We as change agents have to find the right place for us to be and where we need to be and where we're going to be able to shine and develop these new skill sets. So I would encourage, as we think about the future of CX, to take those risks, find the right spot for you to be successful, because that's where it's going to go.
That's great.
There's too many organizations that get to a certain point with it and are not willing to take that next step and truly transform. They're happy with just getting VOC and fixing a few things. That's not where we're going to go.
Yeah.
So find the right spot where you can learn, be successful, be yourself, and really help to transition, and somewhere where you feel like, as we call it, you're not crazy and you're not alone.
Yeah.
And that you can lead an organization to that next level of transformation.
Great. Tucker?
I can't say anything more than that. I mean,
That was
honestly,
beautifully said,
one thing that struck me, you said, someone gave you the criticism of staying in your lane.
Right.
And I wonder if that is an inherently feminine quality, that we don't stay in our lanes. We don't think in silos. We like to, cross-promote, for a technical term, but we like to connect the dots. And, if I see that, our tap room is under construction for the next 3 months, and so the revenue department was talking about, well, how are we going to make up for this lost revenue? Well, that crossed back into my department, and we came up with this idea to do a haunted brewery experience. So we've got a few hundred people coming through the brewery every night getting spooked by the Serenbe Playhouse people. So it all comes back full circle.
Cool.
But I do wonder if that getting outside of our lane is an inherently feminine thing.
I think so.
Want to wrap it up, Tracy?
Yeah, I mean, you guys, I can't add too much more. I just think where I'd like to see CX going in the future, I'd like to just see it be embedded in every person's thinking in the organization, regardless of what function you're in. Because we might be, as CX leaders, regardless of male, female, whatever, we're carrying the flag for the organization and we're doing the hard work of change, but everyone in the organization is responsible for CX, no matter where you sit, and delighting the customer. So I just like to see it be embedded thinking, and I think the organizations who can do that successfully will be the winners.
Totally.
Wonderful.
Totally
That's
agree.
great. Well, thank you all for watching us today. I think that's all the time we have. I see something flashing right there. But I did want to invite all of you.
Mark,
Sorry,
we have time for a question, I think.
We have time for a question? I guess.
And you didn't tell one story.
Storytelling. Great.
What
I mean,
was the
certainly
question?
Storytelling.
social media has changed the game for
Oh, yeah.
sure. You know, and we try and deliver our brewery's experience. We're distributed in 22 states and internationally now, but we try to deliver the experience that we offer at the brewery via social media. I used to call it the digital third space, and I haven't used that term in a long time, but it's like the bake shop or the coffee house is that third space for folks, and we try and use our social platforms with that to tell the story of who we are, but also let people kind of kick the tires just through photos and videos and whatever else content we put out there.
Social media is a pretty good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think storytelling makes it relevant to you. If you can relate to somebody telling a story like, oh, I felt like that before, it resonates. Neuroscience, I talked about this morning, right? That's how things get embedded to us and how we relate to them and therefore can move forward. Data just gives us credibility. It's really this human story that we're trying to tell, and we're trying to change, we're trying to change human lives. I don't care what brand you're with, even if you're selling widgets, right? You're trying to do something different in an organization. You're trying to change the world, even if it's success for your brand. But the storytelling is really what resonates. Even if you have this technical component behind it, it still helps people to connect.
Great. We have time for one more question.
You're welcome.
Anybody? Oh, look at that. Okay. Well,
Nice.
I guess that was really thorough.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you all around.
Right.
All right.